The time has come for you and I to master the Active Directory Sites and Services tool. We'll be creating Active Directory sites and subnets within there in a hands-on lab in a moment. Please understand, one of the reasons we love to create Active Directory sites, the number one reason is so that we can control replication. A second great reason is to use group policy objects and assign them to these sites. And finally, a third reason would be those SRV records inside of DNS. Those can be associated with sites so that systems can easily find a service that's close to them geographically. When you fire open your hands-on lab, head over to the Server Manager, and we're going to go to the Tools menu, and we're, of course, going to Active Directory Sites and Services. We remember, when we are creating our domain controllers, they're going into the default site of Active Directory, and that default site is the default first site name. So obviously, one of the things that you would do in an enterprise is you would create new sites. This is very easy. We can right-click our sites node and choose new site in order to create a new site. So let me create a Tampa site right now. Notice that there is only one link, and that is the default IP site link. That's fine. We're going to be creating site links in a moment, so we'll just go ahead and say OK to create that Tampa site. Now, the first time you create a site, it says, all right, look, you're going to want to link it to other sites. You're going to want to add subnets to the site. You're going to want to install domain controllers in the site. So it's giving us tips on we're not done. That's fine. So say OK, and you won't be bothered with that message again. As you might guess, it's very easy to create a site using PowerShell. Let me just show you that quickly. And we can do all of the configuration that we're doing inside this graphical user interface inside of PowerShell. So no problem with that. Let me just show you quickly, though, what it would look like going in and creating a new site there. We would use the new -AD and then replication. So I'll just hit a tab as I spelled most of that out. And we'll see there's a new AD replication site command that we can utilize. You give a name parameter. We'll give this new site name of London inside of PowerShell. Just make sure that name is entered in quotes, and we just created it. This will be reflected in the graphical user interface. My experience is it takes a little bit of time, so you're going to want to hit refresh a few times, and then eventually that site of London is going to show up for you in the Active Directory Sites and Services tool. Let me click on this node, click on Sites, and hit refresh one more time, and there we go. There's our London site created from PowerShell. Now, obviously, as you can see how I name these sites, they represent geographic locations, but what we really need to identify a site is a subnet. What are the IP addresses from a subnet perspective that are used in that area? So we have a subnets node inside of Active Directory Sites and Services, and we use this node to create a new subnet. For instance, the prefix in London, let's say, is 172.16.10.0 with a 24-bit mask, and we'll assign that to the London site. We'll then right-click subnets once again, choose New Subnet, and we'll do the Tampa prefix at 172.16.20.0 with a 24-bit mask, for example, and that's the subnet associated with Tampa. So that's how simple it is to create your subnets and assign them to sites inside Active Directory Sites and Services. Now it's time for us to configure our next component, and that is inter-site transports or links. Look, when you go in here, we know that's where under the IP category is our default IP site link. IP is an inter-site transport, and this is the one you're going to use most frequently. If you had two geographic locations that were connected via a very, very unreliable link, maybe the link is down more than it's up, that's when you would opt for simple mail transfer protocol as the inter-site transport. This is very rare. We're so typically using IP site links. So what we're going to do is right-click that IP node and choose New Site Link. Inside the site link area, we'll give it a name. For instance, this is my TPA to London site link. So you'll often name it this way. And then you select the sites that you are connecting with this link. Notice on the left is sites that are not in this link, and we move the 2 sites over that we created that are going to be connected by this site link. We say okay, and we have our site link for the sites that we created. Now, if you want to manipulate this, you're going to go into its properties. And notice we can control a cost value. The cost is defaulting to 100. Lower costs are better. So you could connect via multiple links, multiple Active Directory sites, and then you could use the cost value to dictate which link is used more frequently. This is awesome control, obviously. Notice by default, replication will occur every 180 minutes, and you can even go in and manipulate the schedule. So perhaps during work hours, you don't want replication happening. So this is all fine granular controls that we can create for replication based on our wonderful IP site link. Now, did you notice something when we right-clicked the IP node to create a new site link? There was this option to create a new site link bridge. What this is all about is you going in and indicating what links can be bridged together for use in replication. This is rare that you would do this, but you could literally make it so that replication only occurs between certain site links. So that's what bridging the site links is all about. By default, Active Directory is going to use all of the site links that you have configured. If you wanted to restrict that, you could indicate just those links that will be bridged together using that bridge link feature. Now, another skill that we need to be able to use inside here, once we've built the structure as we've done and configured it, what you would do is you would then move domain controllers into appropriate sites. And this is very, very easy. You'd go into the default first site name, for instance, and you'd see your servers that are in there, and you would take the one that you want to move, and you would right-click it and choose Move. And then you're going to be able to easily move it into the appropriate site. Once again, everything that we've done in this graphical user interface is very simple to do in PowerShell as well. Now, I mentioned it in the introduction, but it is worth repeating. When we create this site structure, it is going to be honored in the service records that are in DNS. If we go to the Tools menu of Server Manager and we pull up DNS, just a quick reminder on those service records. So let's go into our forward lookup zone for our nuggetlab.com domain, and we know there's this TCP node, and here are our service records. So as we manipulate the site structure within Active Directory, it's going to have an impact on an Active Directory integrated DNS system automatically so that individual machines can find the appropriate services in their local site. In fact, you could even use service records to help give you what's called site coverage. Let's think about this for a minute. Let's say that we have this little tiny remote site out there. What are our options for ensuring that the clients in that site are going to be able to find a domain controller? Well, one option is we could have SRV records that we manipulate that will point to a domain controller somewhere else. My drawing's so terrible, I better label that. So this domain controller could help those individuals thanks to the SRV records. We could also put a read-only domain controller out in that site, and we could configure that as we've seen in this course. Or we could just go ahead and say, all right, whatever this subnet is, we better add it to a site where there is a domain controller that can service those clients. So those are your 3 options. Once again, SRV records or a read-only domain controller, or of course, adding that subnet to a site in Active Directory sites and services so those remote clients can find the domain controllers that they need. So sites inside of our Active Directory are just such a great idea, aren't they? Once again, we can fine-tune replication with our site links that we can manipulate. We can assign group policy to sites inside of Active Directory, and we can ensure that clients can find the services they need easily and efficiently within their own sites. I hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.